So, hello and welcome. The time is here, it is 1 o'clock, it is our weekly Wednesday webinar, and I'm your host, Andy Gilbert, Managing Director of Go.Mad Thinking. And thank you very much to choosing to spend the next hour with me. I hope you've got your pens and pencils at the ready, because there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be covering. As ever, I'm just going to do a quick poll to start with, and that is just to see how much experience people on this webinar have got. So let's launch that poll. We'll keep that going for about 45 seconds or so to allow a few more people to join us. And then this will just allow me to perhaps just tailor a few things to the level of audience that we've got on. And what I always do here is I wait till we get 80% of people have completed the poll, and then we'll just do a little quick assessment. So let's just see. Okay, we have got, looking at this, about 50, just over 50% of people have got no experience of the Go.Mad methodology at all. 43% have attended one of my webinars before. 41% have watched my TEDx video. 29% have read at least one of my books. 32% have completed at least one day of Go.Mad training. We don't have any licensed Go.Mad or Think On Master coaches with us today. Sometimes we do, but we have a lot. And 57% of people have downloaded the Thinking for Good app. Okay, so let's just stop there and get rid of that. I'll come back with a second poll in just a short period of time. We'll just line that up. Okay, so what are we going to be covering today? This is our agenda. It's really divided into 4 parts. The first one is really looking at some key success principles. This is what we refer to as the Go.Mad framework. And I'm going to share some personal stories from my own career, and hopefully they'll give you a few light bulb moments. This is what we're after, is light bulb moments today. Big one behind me there. And this is about having an insight, a realization, maybe a moment of clarity, or a valuable idea for yourself. And that's the purpose. I want to give you lots of value today. The second thing we're going to do is a couple of career development or career management exercises from 30. I've got a set of 30 exercises, and I've picked 2 for you to experience and relate to yourself. And then what I'm going to do is a different form of coaching exercise where we're going to play a game, and where you get to be the movie director. And we're going to think about your career as a movie. So great fun, and we'll come to that towards the end. And then we'll end with question and answer session and some prizes. And the more you participate today, the more chance you have of winning some great prizes. And those prizes will include some free development programs that we're running. So if you haven't been with us before, this is how the webinar works. It's quite interactive. I will talk for a while, share some ideas, and I will invite you to interact with me in 2 ways. If you have a question for me at any point during the next 55 minutes or so, please use the Q&A button, right, and post your question to me. Okay, I will pause and answer a couple of questions as we go along, and then at the end we'll have a fuller Q&A session. And I promise that if we don't get through all the answers today, I personally will send you an answer to your question, either myself or one of the team will, before the end of this week. And then the second thing is, you might just want to post some reflections or some light bulb moments. And I'm going to ask you perhaps what you've got out of this webinar, and maybe how you're going to apply it. So again, interact with me. The chat function is managed by my co-host, the brilliant Manisha. And Manisha is my sidekick, who works with me about 12 miles away in her own house, because we're socially distanced. I'm in our headquarters at the moment. And any questions you've got for her about maybe references I'm making, this is unscripted, but it is structured. So I will go off the topic, and obviously I will refer to your questions as well. So that's how it's going to work. Q&A for me, chat, I'll read some stuff out, and Manisha will read all of those. Right, let's do the next quick poll. And this is basically understanding a little bit about you and your role. How would you describe your current role? Okay, just enter that. Okay, let's just have a look at who we've got on today. Okay, that's great. We're up to 86%. Well, let me just share those results with you. So you can see a lot of functional leaders today, a third. Team leaders was 17%, project leaders, and non-leaders but curious. Okay, a good split there. There is going to be something for everybody here, right? So we've got a lot to cover. Let's get straight into things. I'm going to start with 7 key success principles, okay? I should say at this point that if you're not familiar with my work, read my books, seen films or anything, when I refer to Go Mad, it stands for Go Make a Difference. This is a rallying call or a cry to say, go forth and change or improve something. Let's not stay the same, let's go make a difference. And the 7 key principles to familiar with, and I'm going to personalize these with some stories about my own career, are these. If you want to go from A to B, and therefore you achieve a goal and make a difference, you're going to go on a journey. If you do these 7 things, it will improve your probability of success. This is about looking at your motivation, your desire, your reason why. It's about having clarity about where B is, that goal. What is your clearly defined goal? It's having a level of self-belief and confidence that that goal is achievable. It doesn't have to be totally achievable, but we may be not going to say, I'm going to be an astronaut by the end of next week. Then we have some tools and a philosophy around, now we know what we want, why we want it, and a level of belief that we can get there. This is about doing some possibility thinking, thinking creatively, building ourselves a plan of priorities and planning the timing to take action. Some of that will involve other people. Don't attempt to do everything yourself here. At the heart of this model is personal responsibility, which means it's down to you, it's your career, and you have got some choices to make. Now, that's the thinking bit. Then you put it into action, and as you're moving from A to B on that journey, you're either going to be on track, happy clappy, or you're going to be off track, so you need to adjust. So you come back to the center of this framework and say, it's down to me, my career, my responsibility. What do I choose to do? Redefine my goal, involve other people, do some more possibility thinking, or a different plan. Right, that's it. We're going to come back to this. And remember, you can ask questions at any stage. So I'm going to share with you some key light bulb moments that I've had on my career journey. And this started at the age of 18 when I went to work in a bank, National Westminster Bank, in a very small country town in South Leicestershire. And I thought, I'll go to work in a bank. I left school at 18, got some A-levels, didn't go to university. And I had, all in all, 4 happy years there and 1 very unhappy year. So my light bulb moment was that actually when I'm unhappy, I needed to get out because I couldn't get on. And I went and took a big pay drop, 25% at the age of 23, to go into the civil service, public sector, right? And by fortune, on the 2nd week that I was there, they put me on a 2-week supervisory skills program. I was a line manager for the first time at the age of 23, and they gave me 2 weeks of training. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And it was at that point that I realized that I knew my light bulb moment was what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to help adults learn and have the same experience that I had had as a 23-year-old learning how to be a team leader. And that was it, age 23, I'm now 57, 34 years have passed, and that was a defining moment in my career where for the first time, I truly knew what it was that I wanted. So let's go back to the framework. I knew what I wanted, that was my goal, to become a trainer, right? And I knew why I wanted it. right? And I had that burning passion for it. I also had the belief that it was possible, but not straight away. So eventually I did become a trainer in the civil service. And I loved it. I did my training qualifications, absolutely fantastic. But then the next opportunity that I had, and this is where I really had to take personal responsibility and challenge, was that there was a secondment offered. And it came on a blue bulletin. I remember it was a blue bulletin and it was on the wall. And there was a range of secondment opportunities. And there was one that really appealed to me because it was looking for somebody with a training experience in employment. And by this time I had gone to work. My first training job was as a job club leader, training unemployed. And I specialized in working in inner city areas with black minority ethnic groups, okay, as they're now called BAME. And so I worked in an employment rehabilitation center. So I predominantly had black ethnic minority groups, unemployed with disabilities, and I specialized in working with people who were deaf. And I had an amazing placement record. And then I got into soft skills training and management training. And anyway, this secondment opportunity was there. So I applied for it. And then I was accepted for an interview. And then another notification came back and said, all secondments have been suspended for the foreseeable future. And I couldn't figure out why. So I went to see somebody. I was working at a regional office at the time, and they explained the reason was that the money that went out for my salary was paid back by the employer where I was going on secondment, but it went into a central treasury pot and not into the department budget. And therefore that department would be out of pocket. So they didn't want to be out of pocket because there'd be a person down and there was no way. It was pure bureaucracy. So I thought, sod it, I'm going to go for the interview. So I went for the interview and nobody else turned up because they all obeyed the instructions. I was the only one at the interview and they offered me the job on the spot. And I said, yes, I just need to sort out a little bit of a tricky logistical situation. So I went back to work and I explained that I'd been offered the job and they said, you can't have it. So I said, okay, leave it with me. So I wrote to Whitehall, to the head of the civil service, and I said, you have got this most ridiculous situation. Could you please sort it out? Anyway, to cut a long story short, it went back through the system to the head of the region, who was not best pleased that I had gone above their head and made a kerfuffle about this. And he said, look, just go. So I was probably too much of a nuisance for them at that point. Let's just get him out of my head. So I went, and this was the start of the next piece of my career. But what I was really doing there is taking responsibility, realizing that I had some choices, knowing what I wanted to do. And I became a national training manager and product development manager for a subsidiary of British Coal called British Coal Enterprise. And during the course of the year, I started to write books. Remember the days of videos? This is what they look like, and cassette tapes. And I started to write books, make videos, audios, and develop large-scale training programs for the 50 or so thousand people that were leaving the coal industry at that time. So as a result of that, okay, I then got invited by the British government who needed an expert in what was called mass layoff restructuring to go to Europe and start to advise. Communism had fallen and there was increasingly large-scale unemployment out there. So I went as a government advisor out to 6 different countries I worked in, but my main ones were Poland, Bulgaria, Uzbekistan and Hungary. And I just learned so much from that relatively young age, going out there, still in my 30s, and going, wow, you know, I was talking to government ministers and advising them on kind of mass layoff situations, loads and loads of learning. As a result of that, I then came back to the UK. The company that I was working for at the time had done a management buyout, and they basically had set up an outplacement company that grew to be the 3rd largest in the UK. And my job, again, was designing the products, and designing large-scale training programs, and started to get involved in change management as a subject. And I did my first piece of research there about survivor syndrome, about when change happens and people still survive in an organization, psychologically what goes through their head, and what can managers do to help people manage their teams through change. And remember, I hadn't gone to university at this point, so I decided in my part-time to do a part-time master's degree. I'd had a good experience. I was in a senior management role by this time, and I did it. I did a part-time HRD, Human Resource Development, master's degree. And it was fantastic. And for my dissertation, this is a copy of it here, I did it, here it is, in search of career management. That was my topic. Let me just bear with me 1 second here. So check that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to even admit a mistake to you. Right in the cover here, I don't know if you can read that, but it says in search of human research, the MSc in Human Research Development. I'd even spelt it wrong on that. Anyway, despite that, I've got a distinction, everything's great, and we're moving on. So, what's next in the journey? My next light bulb moment. This is about taking personal responsibility. I was now thinking, what do I want to do? But if you go back to that, the conclusion of my research dissertation was I had to define what is career management. And for me, career management meant taking personal responsibility. And this was my definition here, aligning the work that I did with my values and my sense of identity. In other words, what I'm saying here is, if I can do work that I really value and represents who I am, I'm going to be happier. Okay, and for that is finding work that makes you happy and fulfilled. And I realized that in my role at that time, I was helping thousands of other people to get jobs that they wanted, but I was stuck in a bit of a rut, a job that I didn't want. So what did I do? And this is before we'd done this research, of course. It was about taking personal responsibility. So I made a choice, and I chose to hand my notice in. But I did this after I made a proposal to the board to set up a new career management division. I've got the business plan, I've got the spreadsheets, I could show that it was viable, I've got a provisional list of people that I wanted to recruit it. I put the business proposition to the board, and it was rejected on the 10th of December, 1996. On the 23rd of December, 2 days before Christmas, I then left the organisation. It was done by mutual consent. I got 3 months salary, and I could take one client with me to help me set up my first business. But what I want to share with you here, personal responsibility. Personal responsibility comes at various different levels. And you can see on this diagram here, we've got the vertical axis that looks at to what extent we make a difference, okay? And we've got the horizontal axis that looks at the degree to which we take personal responsibility. Now, I'm going to share with you 5 boxes here. Sometimes people in the world deny there are any opportunities out there, okay? There's nothing that I can do, right? No opportunities at all. They just don't exist, okay? They're perhaps so worried about themselves, they're having a bit of a pity party, they are not taking any responsibility at all, and therefore they are making no difference. Just slightly along from that are people who recognize that there are opportunities, but for whatever reason, they are choosing to ignore them. Maybe they've just got stuff going on, whatever. But this is where there's a change and a leap, and it's not a linear progression here. We are going to do and take a mental jump, a mind shift, a change in the way that we think. Because then if you move along, you'll find that there are some people that will take an opportunity. Maybe they'll see a job advertised internally, just as I did. I said, oh, there's a secondment opportunity, I'll take that, okay? But sometimes there might be not those opportunities to take. So you might have to go in search of opportunities, right? And sometimes people go in search and they can't find what they're looking for. So there's another level of responsibility that says, you know what, I'm going to create an opportunity. And this reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by George Bernard Shaw, famous Irish playwright. And he said, people are always blaming their circumstances for where they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they make them. And that's really the essence of what I'm displaying here in terms of different degrees of personal responsibility. So let's move back to the story. So at this point, I'm thinking, right, I've set up my own business. What am I going to call it? It's all about careers. So my first business was called Career Strategies, right? And it was all about career management and how to do that. And the other topic that I was particularly good at was change management from an organizational perspective, and that whole survivor syndrome and what could managers practically do to help their teams and themselves manage through change. So we had a passion statement, not a statement or a mission statement. My coach at the time, called Tim, said, Andy, you're a very passionate man. Why don't you have a passion statement? And I said, fantastic. What's one of those, Tim? And he said, I don't know. Just write down everything you're passionate about. So myself, and I had one person working with me at the time called Kath, who's still with me 22 years later, we wrote down a load of words. There's about 90 words there or so. And this is a table in a meetings room, not being used at the moment, but you'll see at the end, let me just show you more clearly, those words, right? And this is everything that I'm passionate about. This is my motivation, my raison d'etre, my reason why. And there were 3 words towards the end of that passion statement about making a difference. That's where the M.A.D comes from. So again, we're not going to do this exercise today, but if I was to invite you to write down everything that you are passionate about and to build your own passion statement, what might it possibly say? If you were then to think, how passionate am I at the moment about the role that I'm doing? Where could I be more fulfilled and add things into my role, or be proactive within your organization if you're working in an organization, or if you've got your own business, to get that sense of energy from working your passion. Okay, so I continued writing books. This is a book table that is just over there, the back. And you will see that one of these books was called Go to Work on Your Career. Now, this is a very rare book because there's only 2 of them left in my office. It's out of print now, but this book contains 30 exercises that we used to run as a 3-day career management program. At the moment, we're busy digitizing those. So in a month's time, if you're interested, you'll be able to do all of those 30 exercises, and we're going to make some new videos for them and go through this 3 days of work, but we'll just package it down. So carried on writing, getting quite prolific there, and really then is saying, okay, we got the Go M.A.D results framework from that. This is just a pack of cards for thinking. That results framework was on there. Okay, so what am I doing now? The work that I do now is really purposeful as an organization, and we're really focused on our purpose as a business. And our purpose, Go M.A.D Thinking, is to improve your world through better thinking. And you can read for yourself there what that means. It's about behavior change, enabling people choices about how they think, working with certain groups of people, partners, that. But ultimately, the purpose that we're working for is a 2023 vision to help 100 million people have a light bulb moment. And why 100 million? Well, actually, it's a numbers game. And we believe that if we have 100 million, we will therefore be the catalyst for 1,000 humanitarian projects. Okay, and that's what we do. So we develop content, materials, work with partners, all to do that. So that is a very short story, very quick, about how I have taken personal responsibility for my career. Right, reflect there. Hopefully that might have given you some insights, maybe just some useful stuff it's time for me to stop talking and to have a chat. So I've got a few questions coming in at the moment. Thank you very much, Gillian and Carol. We'll come on to those in a second. All I'm going to invite you to do is write questions down, the Q&A, but what's been the most useful takeaway from anything that I've covered in that first 20 minutes? Just put that in the chat box, and that gives me a bit of feedback, and we'll see if there's any themes emerging here, okay, from anything that I've said. And while we do that, I'm going to answer. So please put in what's been the most useful takeaway from anything that I've covered. Carol's asked a question: how many ways do you believe a passion statement can be used to reflect and support a person's career development? 101 or more. There's loads of possibilities, Carol. Second part: could it appear on a CV in some form, for example, in your view? Yes, absolutely. People are being a lot more creative with their CVs now. You could put a passion statement on there and it tells them about you. It's a little bit more interesting than hobbies and interests, which used to be the old style that you would put on a CV. So absolutely definite. You can make a video about it. You could blog about it. You could have it on your LinkedIn profile. You could create a Facebook group about it to develop people to have passion statements. You could have it, we've got it actually not just on a crystal coffee table, we've got it about 4 places on perspex, on walls to inspire people. So you could inspire yourself, you could inspire others, you could go in search of like-minded people for passion, okay? So unlimited possibilities there. I hope that helps, Carol. Right, let's have a look at what's been coming in on the chat. I'll read a few of these. Helen's saying, create your own opportunities. James saying, make your own opportunities, don't be afraid to change. Andy, I really like the personal responsibility effectiveness matrix. It's an improvement and advancement on Unhappy Fred. Right, I know, Andy. Unhappy Fred is a model that I sometimes use in M.A.D training. Haven't got time for it today. Another time we'll do that. Jane, being so driven and not just conforming when you were told there was no budget. Matt saying, it's making me pause and think, why am I doing what I'm doing, and what's the real mission behind our current team? Are we framing our work right to our internal stakeholders? Okay, loads of stuff there. People saying they like the passion statement. Great. I want to go on and share 2 very fun and practical career exercises with you. Right. The first of these is called a career metaphor exercise. This is an exercise that I used to collect career metaphors from people. So let me just quickly share with you. You will need a pen and paper, okay? And if you want to, I'm going to invite you to share it. So when we think to ourselves inside our head, we sometimes imagine and create things. I'd just invite you to complete this statement, okay? I see my career as, okay? So a metaphor is just a figure of speech, okay? A word or a phrase, a sentence applied to an object or an action, okay? Not literally. So let me give you an example here. This is a real one, okay? I see my career as being blindfolded and lost in a maze. Every time I think I know where I'm going, things change, okay? Here's another one. I see my career as a solo explorer, constantly discovering new lands and learning. Okay, they're just 2 examples. So whatever goes through your mind, just complete the career metaphor sentence. I see my career as, okay? And then I'm going to invite you, if you choose to, I'll only share your first name. I won't share anything else, just so you know that it's you. Please write your career metaphor in the chat, because what we're going to do is we're going to do some analysis of it. And I've got a little assessment analysis tool. You can do it for yourself, but I'd just like a couple to demonstrate on, okay? So I see my career as, please put it can be simple or long, whatever you want. Okay, I'm getting a couple coming in here. Thank you very much, Jamie. I'm definitely going to use that one. And it's a very short one, just 3 words. Okay, here we come, great. See my, okay, thank you very much, Helen. I'm going to use yours as well. Right, 2. The first thing we're going to look at is when you look at, and by the way, keep sending them in on chat, and I might just pick a few points out of these. The first thing we're going to ask ourselves is my career metaphor a helpful metaphor or a hindering metaphor? In other words, if I keep repeating it in my head, is it a helpful statement? What sort of imagery does it contain? And what I'm going to share with you now is an analysis of 10 to 12 points that are very common that you can spot. So let's see where it is. Right, here we go. Oh, Carol has just put a fantastic one in here. I'm going to read this out. Fantastic, because it made me smile and take me back to a boyhood memory. Carol has said, I see my career as the Willy Wonka elevator. This is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Roald Dahl story. I see my career as the Willy Wonka elevator. It was a glass elevator. It moves in every direction. So sideways like that. Okay. So there's a sense of direction in that one. Matt's got, I see my career as a therapist to help people think through why and how they're doing what they're doing so they can do it better. So there's a therapist. Helen, I see my career as the yellow brick road crossroads. I know there are directions I can go in, but I don't know which way to go. And Jamie's put, I see my career as a dead end. Right, let's look at the analysis here, okay? So, does your career metaphor contain any of the following? Firstly, a sense of direction. Forward, backward, past or future. So the ones that we went through there, Carol's was going in every direction there. We also had Helen, she was at a crossroads and talking about a direction, okay? Are there any obstacles in there that you're facing, overcoming, or obstructing, okay? What about a sense of dependency, independency, or interdependency? What about certainty or uncertainty? Success or failure is another common one. There's one just come in here. Somebody's put, Andrew has put a roller coaster, twisting and turning around obstacles. So a sense of movement in that one, but also a thing about obstacles, number 2 there, okay? Gillian's put in, I see my career as walking into a forest and taking paths that look unused and overgrown. So again, walking, a sense of direction into, forward, taking paths that look unused or overgrown. The road less traveled perhaps. Is there something about responsibility or blame? Are you in control of your metaphor? Okay. Or are you a victim of circumstances? Where is the locus of control? Okay, so locus of control, a psychological concept, says basically, are you blaming the government, COVID, circumstances, the economy, and it's external to you, or is the locus of control internal inside? Are you being proactive or reactive? Are you letting things happen to you in your metaphor, or are you taking control of it? Is there a sense of competition? That can happen in some metaphors there, okay? A sense of building, growing, declining, or stagnating. So the one that was earlier from Jamie, perhaps a dead end. And then the other one that I see sometimes are images of brightness, darkness, light, shade is in there, okay? So hopefully that you got some use of that. The good news, the second part of this is, if you were to reword or even change your metaphor into something that could be more helpful for you, what might it possibly be? Okay. There's an exercise for you to do, not now, but after this. And then again, have a look at those words, and we'll send you the slides, by the way, from this. We're recording this webinar, so we'll send that to you, and you can kind of like just do that little analysis for yourself. Okay. So this is a model about thinking effectiveness. And it is another Go Mad model in our series, and it just says that when you think inside your head, you predominantly do 4 things, right? You talk to yourself in statements and questions, and that career metaphor was a statement exercise. So make sure that that statement is as helpful as you can make it. Sometimes we ask ourselves questions, and we're going to do an exercise on that next. But we also imagine, and we're going to do another exercise on that, but we also remember. So if you're remembering stuff, remember the best bits. Okay, next exercise. This is called having a me PLC mindset, and it's a self-assessment. And what we're going to do is imagine that regardless of whether you're a job, self-employed, or running your own business, you are going to think of yourself as a business, okay? And therefore, if you are a business, you would have customers. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions now. And by the way, once you get the hang of this, if you want to write some questions in the chat, I will read those out. Right. So if you are managing your career as if you're a business, you might be asking yourself, who are my customers? What is my level of customer service? What is the customer experience that people who deal with me in the workplace or outside have? What could I possibly do to improve that? So you get the gist of it, okay? Next one then, products and services. What products and services do I offer? How could I improve my products and services so they meet my customers' needs? Remember, this is you as an individual here, right? So your products and services might be your knowledge, your skills. It might be the way that you provide or deliver things. So is that up to date, by the way? How up to date are your products and services? How good's your marketing and sales function? And I'm not just talking when you're going for your next job interview or your promotion panel or something like that. How good are you at marketing your services to other people within your organization or externally? What if you were your own marketing department? What would you do to improve your brand? Again, all I'm doing is I'm asking you questions, and feel free, if anybody wants to put questions in here, you can do. What about your competitors? Who are your competitors? All right? What could you possibly do to outcompete, to differentiate yourself from your competitors? How good's your research and development department? How good are you at innovating, creating new ways of doing things so that you're indispensable to whoever your customers are? What about your ops department? You are also head of operations for yourself. How efficient are you? How effective are you? How good is your service delivery? What possible improvements could you make to the way that you deliver value? So you can see that this is quite a stretching exercise. I guarantee you that if you went through all these sorts of questions, you could spend a couple of hours just thinking of this in a completely different way. Oh, by the way, how's your finance department? I hope you've got more that's coming in than is going out. Okay, what's your budgeting like? What's your cash flow forecast like? Okay, think about yourself as if you're running a business. Oh, by the way, what's your strategy? Does your strategy need to change because of the current environment? There are opportunities out there. What's your career strategy? Remember, that was the name of my company, Career Strategies. So I hope that has been insightful for you and stimulated your mind. Just take a look at those areas and think, which of those, quick chat with me, which of those do you think you could do more work on if you were running yourself as if you were a business? Okay, let's just see if there's any themes on this. Thank you very much, Pam, for the feedback. You love this exercise. Great, so do I. Okay, so which one of those could you do more work on as me PLC? Thinking about all of those areas. What have we got? Okay, we've got Steve coming in saying Definitely better customer service could provide. Okay, that's fine. Jane, more inspiring. Marketing, improving the marketing department. Okay, and again, marketing, this is about self-marketing. Okay, how well are you letting people know what you can do without waiting to be asked? Being proactive. Think of all the different mediums you've got for marketing yourself and letting people know what you can offer. Andy's saying he thinks he could work on all of those points, particularly marketing and sales. You know, don't think people naturally promote themselves to colleagues within work. I agree. Gillian's saying very insightful, all of them, but in particular marketing and sales, there is a definite theme, folks. It's going crazy now on this. Cheryl's saying marketing and sales, Matt's saying marketing. Marketing wins. Sort out your marketing department. Okay, right, let's move on. Next exercise. Okay, remember, if you've got questions for me on any of this, please put them down. I'm happy to answer them. My Career, the movie. Now for this one, you will need paper and pencil. I'm going to go a little bit quieter and a little bit slower, right, as we do a career movie exercise. Okay, it's guided coaching, so just make sure you're ready for it. Right, if you've been on one of my webinars before, certainly if you've done some training with me, you'll know that my favorite German word is Kopfkino. Okay, do you know what Kopfkino means? Anybody know what Kopfkino means? Okay, in English, here we go. Pam saying no. I didn't until about 2 years ago. Oh, Andy, yes, I know you know the answer. Mind cinema, right? Head cinema. It's fantastic that the Germans have a word for head cinema. Okay, so what we are going to do is some head cinema. And this is the stuff that goes on in our heads, our questions, our statements, the things that we imagine, the things that we remember. And I'm going to help you create the start of a career movie for yourself, and you can finish this off in your own time. Okay, so firstly, I'm going to invite you to think about what genre of movie are you choosing for your head cinema? Okay. Now, by the way, the movie starts today. There's already been some previous exercises, some previous episodes rather, and you don't have to have the same genre of movie that you've had before. It might be time to speed up, it might be time to slow down. You might want an action movie. You might want to continue and it become like a soap opera. That's fine. Okay. Hopefully you're not picking a horror movie. Okay. But some people do. They see their career as lots of horrible things happening. So decide the genre of your movie. Okay, let's move on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you around these 4 areas. And the first one is I'm going to ask you some questions for you to think about in the context of your movie here. Okay, so let me give you some questions and you can either write these questions down or you can start answering them. Okay, so first question. What locations would you like your movie to be set in? That could be somewhere from the past. It might be somewhere you've never been before. It might be a series of locations. What sort of role do you want in your movie? Do you want to be the lead character, starring role? Maybe you're in a supporting role. Maybe it's just a movie that's an adventure and you're solo, just you. Think Tom Hanks stuck on the desert island. Or maybe there's lots of people in your movie. So start thinking about places, location, people. Okay? And then I'm going to just invite you to imagine forward. What are the things that you would most like to happen in your movie? Imagine scenes from the movie. Maybe imagine a plot emerging from the movie. A series, a sequence of events. Start to imagine yourself in that movie, in the role that you want to be in that movie. And just enjoy it, because this should be an enjoyable movie. Remember, you're choosing it, you are directing this movie. And at the moment, all we're doing is we're just playing with our thinking. We're doing a bit of Kopfkino, a bit of head cinema stuff. And as well as thinking about the future, I'm also going to invite you to think about the past. So from a movie perspective, this is your props department. Go into the past and take whatever you want from the past and put it into the future. That might be some people. It might be some roles. It might be some skills, some talents that you've enjoyed using and you want to do more of. It might be places and locations that, again, you've been there before, but you also want them in your future movie. It's also about your learning the past. So what learning do you want to take from the past to put into the future? Okay, so start to just imagine, take the good stuff from the past. If you still want it in the future, create new stuff, scenarios, places, activities, roles. And by the way, you can choose the length of your movie. It doesn't have to be till the end of life. It doesn't have to be until you retire. If you want to, it could almost be a bit like Star Wars, but there's always another episode, episode 6, episode 5. You choose, okay, however long you want your movie to be. You could break it into sections if you want. Okay, all this is just going on in your head as you just experiment and notice what you like. So, as well as asking yourself questions about what you like, what you want to be doing, what excites you, what might fulfill your passion, also start talking statements. I will be, I want, and then start to build the plot and the dialogue. What's going to happen? And then what? If you were to give your movie a name, because at the moment it's only got the working title called My Career Movie, what might this next installment or the rest of your movie be called? What would make it interesting for you? What would make it motivational for you? What might even be exciting for you to participate in this future movie? So I'm just going to allow you another minute of silent reflection here, just to maybe write some questions for yourself. What's the most helpful question that you could write right now to help you think about your future career? Just make a note of that. And then maybe just another question might come to your mind. You don't have to answer it now. And that question might relate to things from the past. What things from the past might you want to bring forward? It might be a question about the future. You might want to make some subheadings and statements. If you imagine you're writing a movie script at this point, what directional notes would you give to the main characters for when that movie gets made? And of course, you might not want to plan all of your movie out. It might be more of an adventure where things emerge at certain points. And that's totally down to you. So I'll just give you 30 seconds just to continue, capture your thoughts before we move on. Okay, and as you're still doing that, just think about what questions you've got for me about anything that we've covered so far, either to do with careers, because that's today's subject, but it might be about any of those models that I've shared with you. The one that's on screen now, the thinking effectiveness model, what we do inside our heads, or it might be to do with those 7 key principles, or indeed any one of those 7 key principles if you just wanted to ask me a question about, or indeed anything to do with the the Go.Mad methodology. Okay, so questions. I've got a couple in so far. More of that. Okay, so let's move on. Remember, the more participation, the more chance you have for prizes. So it can be questions about my career if you want to answer that. Right, one's come in so far. Right, from Jamie. What if the things you're passionate about don't readily lend themselves to your aspirations? Okay. I can only answer this very generally, and I can only answer this from a personal perspective. There is a model of 4 interconnecting circles. I wish I had it on here, and it's called something like Ikigai. Manisha, I know it's on one of our other webinars, and if you could get the name of the model, I think it's called Ikigai, I-K-A-G-O or something, and it basically says that if you can find something that pays you money, there's one thing. If you can find something that you love doing is another thing. If you can find something that fulfills your purpose and your value, that's another thing. And if you can find something that people are prepared to pay for, that's that. And the spot in the middle is the sweet spot. So it's being realistic enough to say, at this moment, I might not be able to see a way to combine my passion with my aspirations. But if you changed the question and just said, how could I possibly, or what could I possibly do to combine them, and then answer it 20 times. This is a classic exercise that we do in Go.Mad called the 20 answer technique. And you don't do anything for 5 or 6 minutes until you've written 20 answers down there. I'm pretty confident, just based on recalled memory, that once you've got beyond number 10, and before you get to number 20, there'll be a couple of really good ideas in there that's relevant for you. So that's probably the exercise that I would do there. You know, I shared with you that I was very fortunate at the age of 23 that I realized I knew what I wanted to do, which was help people learn. And to be honest, before then, for my early career, you know, working in the bank, 18 to 22 or so, I didn't even realize there was a thing called kind of like trainers or, you know, adult education really. I'd never really considered it. But once I experienced it, I found it. And then when I had a coach, and, you know, bless him, my coach called Tim, said, let's do a passion statement. And when I said, I don't know what one is, he says, I don't know, I just made it up. Right? Sometimes you have to make things up as well. And the best thing I would say is do your thinking on paper. Although we've done Kopfkino, do your thinking on paper, right? And write answers down. So I hope that helps you. Okay. I've answered other questions here. Right. Steve, if there was only one piece of advice, and he's put that in capitals, that you would give somebody, what would it be? Oh, that's tough, because I've now got to evaluate all these things. If there was one piece of advice, okay. There was a quote that I heard about 20 to 25 years ago by one of the Cadbury brothers. It was Dominic Cadbury. And he said, there is no such thing as a career path. It is crazy paving, and you have to lay it yourself. Now, if you don't know what crazy paving is, it's where they smash up slabs or have things in a random way, and there is a path there, and you decide where to go. So maybe, Steve, I think that would be it. There's no such thing as a career path linear, right? It's crazy paving, and you have to lay it yourself, and that's the essence of personal responsibility. Okay. Right, another question come in. Lucy, self-belief. How do you increase self-belief? This causes fear and prohibits change. Oh, I haven't got my book here, but one of my books, The Art of Making a Difference, answers this question in a section, and it's got 20 different things you can do to increase your self-belief. So here's just a load of possibilities quickly. Okay, set small goals. Small goals increase belief. Read helpful books. Switch off the news for large periods of time. Switch off social media. Get away from the neg heads. Have some affirmations and write those down. Kickstart your thinking every day by going through the thinking effectiveness model and just stating something about yourself, something you want to achieve. Mix with confident people. Study confident people. Answer the question, Lucy, what could I, Lucy, possibly do to increase my self-belief? And then answer it 20 times. And I think you'll find something for yourself there. Aidan, final question. I'll answer any more personally. How do we start to change negative statements about ourselves, others, and situations to more positive? Right. You have to do something called metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about your thinking and noticing the statements that you're making. So for example, if I said, oh, Fred's a difficult person, that's based on a memory. It might also be based on imagining that Fred is going to be difficult. And it's all because I've labeled Fred as difficult. What if I changed my language and said, Fred is interesting? I now start to get curious and go, Fred's an interesting person. I wonder what causes that behavior. And notice I'm now talking more in questions because I've labeled Fred as interesting. So I used to have difficult people in my life. I have no more difficult people in my life. And that's because I labeled some of them as interesting. And also I didn't associate with some other people. So start to notice your language, and it might just take one word with a bit of repetition for a habit. Okay. For everybody else, we'll be sending you the slides, and now download the Thinking for Good app. Next month, we'll have a program of this with 30 exercises on it. It will be one of our digital programs. And finally, not next week, I'm missing next week, 2 weeks time, Wednesday, the 16th of September, that's 3 weeks time. Okay, oh, I've got 2 weeks off. I'm going to be running a masterclass, and that is about productivity. So that's it from me. If you want to give me any feedback, thank you very much. Please just put it in the chat box. I'll stay on for another 5 minutes. And as ever, stay safe, take care, go forth and make a difference. It's been great having you with me for an hour, and I hope you'll join me in a few weeks' time. Cheers.